뭐라 그럴까 되게 와닿겠어요. 다른 작가에 비해서 되게 이렇게 정말 되게 이렇게 감동하는 그런 표현이 너무너무 좋아요. 스마트한 작가라 너무 쉽나요? 근데 되게 사람의 마음 내면을 잘 읽어내는 작가다.
문체가 참 마음에 들고요. 굉장히 아름답고 또 굉장히 의미 있는 책들 많이 쓰신다고 생각합니다. 철학적인 작가다.
세기의 작가다?
Thank you all so much for coming here. I'm talking, of course, about religion. If you can't believe in Jesus anymore, maybe you can follow Plato, you can follow Montaigne, an amazing educational machine. It matters not only what you say, it matters how you say it. Let's look at some other things now. Let's look at things that the secular world could learn from art, the way that religions use art. I think this could really teach the secular world a lot of things. Now, in the secular world, we take art really seriously. Art is important. We need museums. It's sometimes said, that museums are our new cathedrals, our new temples. Maybe we don't build so many cathedrals or temples anymore, but we build museums. That's what we do. I think this is a nice idea, but it's a very confused idea, and it goes wrong, and a lot of this money, I think, is wasted. A lot of the potential of art in the modern world is wasted. Art goes wrong for two reasons. Firstly, there was a really unhelpful idea that was born in the 19th century in Europe, and this idea said that art should be for art's sake. Art for art's sake. Very famous doctrine. In other words, the artist is an independent person, does not work for anyone else, does not work for a religion or a government, a political party, a financier. The artist is independent and makes art for art's sake. Why did you make this painting? For art's sake. The other thing that artists began to believe is that they shouldn't explain their art too much. That to be a good artist was to be a slightly mysterious artist. So if you go to a modern museum now, the number one feeling that you will have as an ordinary person in a modern art museum is, I don't understand. Number one feeling. And then the number two feeling is, because I am an idiot. That's the feeling you have in a modern museum. And I'm happy to say you are not an idiot, and it's not your fault, it's the fault of the artist. And it's the fault of artistic culture, which ridiculously says all the time that a great artist does not explain a work. So mystery has become the hallmark, the identifying feature of serious art. So the great artists of the modern age, whether it's James Joyce's Ulysses, whether it's the canvases of Mark Rothko, whether it's the plays of Samuel Beckett, there is mystery, and they are serious because they are hard to understand. The difficulty of understanding is a sign of their importance. Now, religions say no, no, no to this. They start from a completely different point of view. They say art should be totally simple. Religious art is completely simple. You never, as a believer, stand in front of religious art and think, what's the point of this? Art in religion has two very, very simple purposes. In all religions across the world, art has two very simple missions. The first one, art should remind you of what you should love. And secondly, it should remind you of what you should be afraid of and what you should hate. The task of art is to help you to be a better person. So let's take a piece of Christian art. Let's take Rembrandt's great painting, The Crossing of the Sea of Galilee. You might not know it, don't worry. It's the crossing. It just shows Jesus crossing the Sea of Galilee. You know that famous moment when there's a huge storm as Jesus and his disciples are crossing the sea, and Jesus shows courage. So it's a story about courage. And Christianity tells us you should be courageous. Courage is a virtue. The problem is that if someone just tells you, believe in courage, courage is important, courage is a good thing, you go, yeah, and you forget it. In other words, an intellectual understanding of an idea is not enough. You need to feel the truth of ideas, and this is why art is important. Art is a mechanism not for teaching you new things, but for making you feel things you already know in a powerful way so they will be effective in your life. So when you look at Rembrandt's painting of the crossing of the Sea of Galilee, it's a beautiful painting, and you think, aha, this is courage. Now I remember what courage is. It's that. That is courage. So you remember something through your senses, in your heart, that previously you maybe only felt in your mind as a dry, intellectual idea. If you like, art for religions is propaganda. Art is propaganda. Rembrandt is a propagandist. Now, when we hear the word propaganda, we get scared. We get scared in Korea, because there are people not so far away who are doing propaganda. We get very scared in Europe, because we've had a lot of experience of people doing propaganda. In Russia, we get very scared. You know, there are names that come up. So you want art that's like Hitler's art. No. Not at all. However, I think we can learn that art could have an overt, obvious mission, a propaganda mission, to make us good people. Not good people as Hitler understood the word good person, or as Stalin understood the word good person, but as Tolstoy might understand good person, or as Shakespeare might understand good person. In other words, the best understanding of what a good human being is could be helped by works of art which would remind us of the importance of certain ways of behaving. And I think it's unfortunate that we have these ideas about modern art, which means that modern art is not trying to remind us of anything. It's not trying to teach us anything. It's not involved in that long mission, that 1,000-year mission of religions to use art for a specific didactic end. We're very scared of the idea that art could be didactic. I think there's nothing wrong with didactic art. Of course there is bad didactic art, but there can also be wonderful, great didactic art. In fact, there is lots of art like this. It's just when you study it in a university or when you see it in a museum, the didacticism is often calmed down. So, you know, when you go to a museum and you look at a painting by Van Gogh and you look at the caption, it says, Van Gogh painted this painting in 1883. It was sold to an art collector. It's made out of oil on tempura base, etc. And you fall asleep because it's very boring information. Really, Van Gogh wanted his paintings to change the world. He was not formally religious, but he wanted his art to change us. That's why he did it. That's why he cut off his ear. That's why he had a horrible life, because he thought that art was very, very serious. And this is a problem we can't quite explain to ourselves, why art matters quite so much. We feel it matters, but we are shy about accepting the neo-religious mission of art. And I don't think we should be. I think we should remember this mission and use it. The same is true of architecture. You know, what is architecture for religions? Architecture is a way of using a space to remind you of an idea. And many people who don't believe in religion love religious buildings. They say, oh, beautiful cathedral, lovely temple, etc. But they say, well, we can't build temples, we can't build churches or anything because we don't believe in anything. So this was just something that religious people used to do often a long time ago. I say nonsense. We can still use architecture in this way. We can still use architecture to remind us of the ideas that are most important. We don't only have to build supermarkets and airports. We can use architecture in the same way as religions have always used architecture, which is as symbols, as homes for the most important ideas. So both with painting, film, architecture, we can make our art didactic in the way that religions used didacticism, even if we don't believe in the doctrines of religion. There's another point that I think we have to remember when we look at religions and when we compare religions with the secular world. And that's about organizing ourselves. How we organize ourselves. The secular world believes that if you are somebody who's involved in a spiritual activity, if you're a spiritual sort of person, not a technical person, not a money person, if you're a kind of spiritual worker, let's say you are a writer, you're a poet, you are a psychotherapist, a painter, the idea is in the modern world, you work on your own. You're on your own. You have a little studio, a little bedroom, and that's where you do your work. You're just an independent person on your own. If you're involved in anything which involves community, look at how religions group people together and create a feeling of community. I believe that religions are too important to be left only to the religious. Now, religions believe that if you're involved in matters of the spirit, you group together, you create institutions. That's what religions are. They are institutions based around ideas. Now, institutions are, in many ways, really good ideas if you want to get your message out there. They're really powerful things. They're financially much more powerful, obviously. The Catholic Church, worldwide, pulled in $97 billion last year. So it's a big machine. It's a rich machine. You know, sometimes atheists say, why do people still believe so much in Catholicism, this kind of thing? Well, if you have $97 billion to play with, that's a good marketing budget. That's a useful kind of starting point, right? Do you know the richest writer on the planet? The richest writer on the planet is a man called James Patterson. Now, last year, I did a bit of research. Guess how much James Patterson made last year? $40 million. So the Catholic Church, 97 billion. James Patterson, 40 million. In other words, James Patterson is pathetic. He is tiny. He is like a flea. And that's James Patterson. So by the time you get to Alain de Botton, that's really tiny. It's so tiny. Doesn't change anything. No money for marketing. Nothing. The other thing about religions is they are collaborative. They use the intelligence of many people, and that helps. Why should one person have all the best ideas? You need to collaborate. We accept this when we're designing a smartphone. If I said I'm going to design a smartphone just alone, I won't use anybody else, just me, I'm going to make my smartphone, we would know that smartphone would not be a very smart phone. We accept we need groups of people. It's much better if 100 people get together. But again, in matters of the spirit, the modern world doesn't believe this. The modern world is also, religions are also very aware that you need to make things branded. You know, if you're going to make an idea work, use branding. Buddhism and Christianity were experts at branding long before Louis Vuitton ever came along, or Apple, or whatever. They knew all about branding. They knew all about having to place a logo on something, and that helping identity. And it does help. Of course it helps. It's about unity. It's about spreading a message across space and making sure that message is steady and continuous. Religions are multinationals for the most part, and religions are very disciplined. They have an internal discipline. Really, the only thing that compares with religions in the modern world are companies, corporations. Multinational companies are the closest thing to religions. The problem is that they only sell us shoes and pizzas and smartphones and tires. So it's almost as though the best system of organizing things is being used for non-spiritual needs. The spiritual needs are catered for by little freelance guys like me who fly around with my briefcase, no logo, just me. And there's a problem of scale. Of course, the individual activist in the secular spiritual space doesn't have a chance. How can you possibly have a chance? So my argument is, if secular people have good ideas, they should institutionalize themselves. Writing a book alone is not going to change everything. Being on your own is not going to help. You need to have branding. You need to have collective organizations. You need to be multinational. That is how properly ideas sink into a population. A lot of what I've been saying today is about ideas and how they take root in a society. And I guess I'm looking at how come religions are so good at this. And it's very interesting and very admirable. Okay, I'm going to come to an end now. But really what I'm saying with this atheism 2.0 that I'm trying to share with you is that whatever area of work or life you are in, if you are an atheist, there are so many things that you can learn and should learn from religions. You know, if you're involved in anything which involves community, look at how religions group people together and create a feeling of community. If you're in the travel industry, look at how religions use travel, the tradition of the pilgrimage. Very fascinating tradition. I don't have time to talk about it now, but I wrote a lot about it in my book. If you're in the art world, again, look at how religions are using art. If you're in education, in a school or a university, look at religions as a system of education. You will learn so much about how to be more effective. So, to conclude, I believe that religions are too important to be left only to the religious. Thank you very much. We have some time for questions, so anyone who's feeling brave, stick up your hand.
You say religion is something to do with dividing without anything about combining. Perhaps you may imply that thing, but you didn't mention that. So I think religion is excellent expert in dividing in this modern world, but religion actually is something for combining. Yeah, I mean the word itself derived from that meaning. So perhaps if you want to take some good positive meaning from religion, you I think have to mention that combining functions.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. that one of the great things that religions have done is to bring human beings together. We hear so much about how religions create wars, and of course, sometimes they have created wars, but they have also done an amazing job, often, of getting strangers to see the humanity of each other. You know, if you look at something like the Catholic Mass is a moment when a group of strangers opens their heart to one another and are united before God and become equal. All the differences in status in the world disappear, and they meet each other as friends around God. And, you know, this is a very beautiful and interesting idea. You know, secular people sometimes say, you know, the modern world is not so lonely because we have Facebook and things like this, so we can meet on Facebook. We don't go to church, or we don't belong in anything, but we have social networking. Well, social networking is great, but it doesn't do one thing that religion really does, which is religion puts us together with people we don't necessarily like. You know, on Facebook, it's like if you like cheese or France or the films of someone, it puts you together. It's like you meet by things you like. That's the principle of social networking. Whereas the principle of religion is you meet because you are part of a community. And if you don't really like each other, that makes it more of an interesting challenge. So, and the ultimate dream in Christianity and in Buddhism is you will learn to like and feel sympathy with your enemy. And that's the ultimate difficulty. And that's a very, very important and very beautiful idea. Okay, another question. Oh, so many. What do I do? Okay, there. Oh.
My question is about love.
Is about?
Love?
Love.
Yeah, between,
People?
not about parents. I mean, do you think if religion can give us new perspective on love?
Well, I think that religion does. The real difference between the secular world and the religious world when it comes to love is that the secular world believes in the love of one other human being, whereas religions tend to believe in the love of many human beings, mediated through a holy figure. In other words, secular love is specific and religious love is more general. The modern world is very focused on love. I think this makes it problematic because in a way we want our lovers to be like gods. We want to be together with someone and that they be like a saint, perfect. You know, if you listen to the way that Catholic writers describe Mary, it sounds sometimes like the way that a modern lover might describe his girlfriend. Beautiful, kind, warm-hearted, understanding, etc. The problem is that no human being can be like the Virgin Mary. That's the point about religions. Religions say humans are totally imperfect. And this is the problem with the modern world. We fall in love with each other, and then we make a horrible discovery on day 1 or day 10 or month 10. We say, oh no, I've not fallen in love with a god, I've fallen in love with a human. And they get angry, and they smell, and they have faults, and they're horrible, and they forgot to call me. And then we think, oh, okay, then maybe it was just that person, so I'll chuck that person and find another one. Maybe that one will be better. So you pick that one, and then everything's fine, and then you discover that they too are a bit selfish and a bit childish and a bit whatever. And religion at this point teaches us a very wise lesson. It says you love gods, and you love saints and deities, and humans, what do? You feel charity, sympathy, and mercy. So when your husband or boyfriend comes home and is a bit annoying or something, you don't say, hey, you idiot, why are you not the perfect God that I expected you to be when we got together? You say, I will show mercy. You must be afraid. You must be angry. Something has made you angry. Now, it's very, 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 very hard to do this, but that's what we should maybe trying to do, and religions remind us of this. But thank you so much, all of you, for coming. It's such a pleasure for me to be here, to be in Korea, and to be here especially. Thank you so much, and I'm sorry I wasn't able to answer all your questions. Thank you. Yes, I like that book very much, and perhaps more as a work of sociology, because it shows the Korean family, and it shows how the Korean family has changed, how modernization has changed connections between the generations. It's the story of modern Korea, but it also shows terrific tenderness. It's a very tender book about love of mothers and children and fathers and children. And this is a universal story. This is why it's become a universal bestseller. It's the story of Korea, but it's really the story of all human beings. Well, I've just written a small book about sex, and that will come out next year. And sex is a difficult topic, and often it's hard to speak honestly about it. So this is a serious philosophical book, but intimate as well. And I hope that readers will read it and feel less lonely about this tricky topic.
네, 너무 잘생기셔가지고 약간 강의 집중도 못했는데 너무 잘 얘기해 주셔서 많은 걸 배우고 갑니다.
네, 한국에 와서 정말 감사드리고요. 앞으로도 좋은 책 많이 써주셨으면 좋겠습니다. 꼭 또 읽겠습니다.
종교라는 것을 믿는 사람들만이 가지고 그 사람들만 누리기에는 너무 아까운 것이다라고 말씀하셔서 그게 가장 인상 깊었던 것 같아요.